Alright guys, I want to talk a little bit about like puppy stuff. Because unfortunately, a lot of folks accidentally like squander puppyhood, because with puppyhood, there's certain things that you can't, not that you can't, but certain things that are, well, sometimes you can't, but sometimes things are just made harder or more difficult, or you have to backtrack a ton when you don't do it when it's a puppy. And so, you know, like I said, you can call that squandering puppyhood a little bit. You know, you just kind of, you know, you're not taking advantage of this time. And so for example, like there's a lot of puppy priorities that we talk about, things like building engagement, things like making the work fun, things like teaching about pressure. What are other things that we talk about?
Place. Desensitization.
Do you like environmental stuff?
Environmental, and even touching, like touching paws and things that a vet would do.
That thing's cute.
He's all about it.
Yeah, so let me talk a little bit more about that as she's working. So you'll notice, not only in this video, but in other videos when we work puppies, we apply a balanced approach. And so we're using a lot of positive. You know, there's the physical praise, there's the verbal praise, there's the food, and we're countering that with pressure. Now, pressure is often, you know, a lot of folks see that as like a four-letter cuss word, right? They don't want pressure, they want to avoid pressure. But in reality, pressure breaks and pressure builds. And so pressure by itself is not necessarily good or bad. It's what happens with pressure.
Yeah.
And the reality is every dog is going to experience pressure and potentially a lot of pressure throughout their life. You know, they're going to run into something that scares them, something that's nervous, or nerve-wracking, something that's difficult to deal with, something that's challenging. And so, so right there, that tiny little thing Sarah just did was an example of pressure, where she applied a little bit of pressure to that leash. Or right now, as he's trying to get off the bed, and she uses a little bit of pressure and follows that up with a little bit of positive. We want the dog to see pressure as something to work through, not something to like fight, right? Because most dogs that, you know, that we meet them for the first time when they're a year old or 2 years old, and we say, okay, I know you want to pull on the leash, but we want this instead, and we add a little bit of leash pressure, you know, they have no idea what to do. You know, they've never experienced very much, you know, pressure. And so teaching a dog how to deal with pressure, whether it's external or internal being, I'm afraid of something, and so internally I'm going to deal with it, or external is like something happens, you know, something happens to the dog, like, you know, there's other dogs that come up, or people, or, you know, environmental things. We need that dog to understand how to deal with pressure. And so like I said, that's why oftentimes with puppies, we use a lot of physical stuff. Praise, when we're trying to build engagement, we use praise, we use food, we use lots of stuff to teach the dog that resources come from the owner. You know, think about most dogs that you see at a year old, somebody takes them out in a field or out in the forest. How much is that dog looking at the owner? You know, probably not very much. He's not looking at the owner as like this source of information, this source of guidance, because the dog's never really learned to prioritize the owner. It prioritizes what's interesting, what's fun, what's unique, what's scary, and doesn't prioritize the owner. So when the dog's young, we want like resources coming from us, food coming from us, praise, physical touch, desensitization like she was talking about. Would you like to touch his paws?
Paws. That way nail cutting won't become a hassle when he's older.
Yeah, with all these little pups, you know, we start cutting nails. You know, they're a little bit worried about it. You might just, you know, put the nail clippers on their nail until they can handle that, and then take more. And so pressure is a good thing, but we don't want too much. You know, if a puppy's freaking out over nails, I'm not going to sit there and just keep clipping. I'm going to do something that he can handle, go a little bit beyond that, and then call that a victory. And then, you know, just kind of keep doing that.
He's tired.
He's tired?
Yeah.
This guy's cute. This guy's adorable. But yeah, so the puppy, you know, puppy priorities fun should be like a big one up there, and that's the one that everyone wants. But beyond that, like I say, what we've been talking about, the desensitization, the pressure, the engagement. Am I missing? I'm probably missing a bunch of things. We need to write this stuff down.
We have socialization, desensitization. Oh, vocabulary. Building, I mean, just building basic vocabulary. I mean, he doesn't need to hold stay command super long, but building the concept of that we are implying a stay. So you say sit, and then you say okay directly after that.
Yeah.
Release them. And some people don't do that. They try to teach stays later on, and it's harder.
And I find most people try to teach commands verbally. They just tell the dog. Dogs are not verbal learning creatures. They can learn things by being told to a degree, but almost everything that your dog's ever going to learn is going to have physical components. The leash taught it, or the food taught it, or the body language taught it. You can sit and just be told things as a human and learn from that. Dogs aren't like that. If we're going to tell them things verbally, we also have to be telling them physically. Otherwise, yeah, nothing's going to come of it. The dog will never understand. Because right now he's hearing 1,000 words a minute. None of it has any meaning until Sarah gives it meaning by putting some pressure on the leash, by adding some food, by giving physical praise. That's how the words actually end up with meaning. We recommend most folks keep their puppies on a leash for a while, so that they can be communicating those things. Keep a leash in the house so they can be communicating those things rather than just trying to tell the dog stuff.